Imagine a man born in a small English town. No royal blood, no modern education, yet his words would one day shape the English language itself. 400 years later, his stories are still performed, studied, and loved across the world. This is the story of William Shakespeare, his journey from an ordinary life to extraordinary immortality. Early life. Stratford upon Avon. William Shakespeare was born in April 1564 in a quiet market town called Stratford upon Avon, England. Although no one knows the exact day of his birth, church records show he was baptized on April 26th, and it is traditionally believed he was born on April 23rd. He was the third of 8 children born to John Shakespeare, a glovemaker and local official, and Mary Arden, the daughter of a wealthy farming family. William grew up in a comfortable middle-class household, not rich but secure. As a boy, he likely attended the King's New School, where he studied Latin, classical literature, rhetoric, and poetry. Writers like Ovid, Virgil, and Seneca would later influence his writing deeply. But childhood was not always easy. England was frequently hit by plague outbreaks, and Stratford was no exception. Death was common, and uncertainty was part of everyday life. These early encounters with loss and fear would later echo through Shakespeare's writing, in themes of fate, mortality, and human suffering. Marriage and responsibility. At just 18 years old, William Shakespeare married Anne Hathaway, a woman 8 years older than him. Soon after, their daughter Susanna was born. Then came twins, Hamlet and Judith. By his early 20s, Shakespeare was already a husband and father of 3. Opportunities in Stratford were limited, and ambition began to pull him towards something bigger. Sometime in the late 1880s, Shakespeare left his family behind and traveled to London, a dangerous city but full of possibility. Lost years. This period of Shakespeare's life is known as the lost years. There are almost no records of what he did, where he lived, or how he survived. Some believe he worked as a schoolteacher. Others think he joined a traveling theater troupe. What we do know is this: when Shakespeare finally reappeared in history, he was already becoming a force to be reckoned with. London and early struggles. London in the late 1950s was loud, crowded, and dangerous. Plague outbreaks regularly shut down theaters. Crime was common. Competition among writers was fierce. Shakespeare likely started as an actor, taking small roles while learning how theater worked from the inside. At the same time, he began writing plays. His early works included historical dramas like Henry VI and Richard III, plays filled with ambition, betrayal, and power struggles. In 1592, a jealous playwright named Robert Greene publicly insulted Shakespeare, calling him an upstart crow. Ironically, this insult confirmed one thing: Shakespeare was already successful enough to threaten others. Poetry and patronage. When theaters closed due to plague, Shakespeare turned to poetry. He wrote Venus and Adonis and The Rape of Lucrece, dedicating them to the Earl of Southampton. These poems became extremely popular and brought Shakespeare financial support. For the first time, he was not just surviving, he was rising. The Lord Chamberlain's Men. Success begins. In 1594, Shakespeare became a founding member of a theater company called the Lord Chamberlain's Men. This was a turning point. He was no longer just a writer, he was a shareholder, a performer, and a creative leader. The company became the most popular in London. During this golden period, Shakespeare wrote some of his most loved plays: A Midsummer Night's Dream, The Merchant of Venice, Much Ado About Nothing, Twelfth Night, Henry V, Julius Caesar. His characters were witty, emotional, flawed, and deeply human. In 1599, the company built their own theater, the Globe Theater. Shakespeare was now wealthy, respected, and famous. Personal loss and darker themes. In 1596, tragedy struck. Shakespeare's only son, Hamlet, died at just 11 years old. Many scholars believe this loss deeply affected Shakespeare. Soon after, his writing became darker, more intense, more emotional. The Great Tragedies, artistic peak. Between 1600 and 1608, Shakespeare wrote the plays that defined his legacy: Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet. These were not simple stories. They explored jealousy, ambition, madness, betrayal, love, guilt, and death. Shakespeare showed the human mind at its most fragile and most powerful. In 1603, Queen Elizabeth I died. King James I took the throne. Shakespeare's company was renamed the King's Men, receiving royal protection and prestige. They performed directly for the king. Shakespeare had reached the very top. Final works and reflection. As Shakespeare aged, his writing softened. His later plays focused on forgiveness, redemption, and second chances. The Tempest, The Winter's Tale, Cymbeline. These plays feel reflective, as if Shakespeare was looking back on his life. The Tempest, especially, is often seen as his farewell to the stage. Around 1613, Shakespeare retired and returned to Stratford upon Avon, living as a wealthy gentleman. Death. On April 23, 1616, William Shakespeare died at the age of 52. The cause of death remains unknown. He was buried in Holy Trinity Church, where his grave still lies today. Inscribed on it is a warning, a curse meant to protect his remains, and it worked. Legacy and immortality. 7 years after his death, Shakespeare's friends published his plays in a book known as the First Folio. Without it, many of his works would have been lost forever. In his lifetime, Shakespeare wrote 39 plays, 154 sonnets, and countless poems. He shaped the English language itself, creating words and phrases still used today. But more than words, he understood people, and that is why his work lives on. Closing. William Shakespeare began life as an ordinary boy from a small town. He faced struggle, criticism, loss, yet his imagination made him immortal. 4 centuries later, his voice still speaks, and as long as humans love stories, William Shakespeare will never truly die.